But the focus today is on self-kindness and self-compassion. And this theme is really dear to my heart, as the practice of self-compassion played a really important role in my healing. My early life was one of a lot of striving, a lot of overachievement and perfectionism, and I ended up getting really sick and having stress-related digestive disorder and anxiety. And it was really through learning how to turn towards my experiences of failure and my feelings of inadequacy with kindness, with the kindness I would extend to a good friend, that I was able to change how my nervous system was functioning. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But the theme really being today is, how do I relate to myself when I experience failure, when I make a mistake, when I feel inadequate or experience shame, or I'm just having a difficult time in life? What is that inner tone? Is it kind and warm, or is it sharp and biting, going into comparison mode or into a sense of sort of isolation? And so we'll get to explore that in a number of ways over the next hour through both reflection practices and guided meditations. So I thought to start us off, we'll do just a very brief reflection and a pause to consider, how do I treat a friend when a friend is experiencing stress or failure? And then we'll do the opposite reflection, how do I treat myself? So as we settle in here, again, bringing the just deep curiosity, no judgment, just curiosity. So if it feels comfortable for you to close the eyes, you can let the eyes close here. And take a few long, slow breaths. Knowing you can always keep the eyes open if you prefer. And taking one more long breath in this way. And think about various times when a close friend was suffering in some way, perhaps feeling inadequate, had made a mistake and was upset with themselves, or had failed. How do you respond? What is your tone of voice? What words do you say? And what do you want for your friend to know is true, or to remember about who they really are, what really matters? Now, returning to your breath, letting go of that first inquiry, letting the belly expand, and taking just 2 more conscious breaths in this way. Aware of inhaling, aware of exhaling. Now think about a time in your life that you have failed, or felt inadequate, or made a mistake. When you've been upset with yourself, how do you respond to yourself? What is the internal tone? What words do you use? And what is your sense of self? Do you feel alone? Do you feel connected to others when you're struggling? And then letting go of that reflection. And taking just a few more breaths, feeling yourself back in your body, back right here in this moment. And when you feel ready to slowly open the eyes, you can slowly open the eyes. So the research shows that 78% of people are significantly more compassionate towards others than towards themselves. So if you noticed a difference between your inner tone and your quality or level of support for a friend versus yourself, you're not alone in that. And interestingly, very often we're using self-criticism or we're using harshness to try and motivate ourselves to change or to be better or to achieve in some way. And so the self-critic is not necessarily a bad thing. It has good intentions very often, but its way of motivating is actually counterproductive. So I find the physiology of self-compassion really compelling, and was doing a lot of research around it that I was first willing to give it a try. But what happens when we use self-criticism or harshness to try and motivate ourselves to be better, to change, to show up in our lives in a different way, we actually activate the threat self-protective systems of the brain body. So we're activating the stress response, and we're then flooded with hormones that are designed to make us feel alone, that are designed to make us feel more agitated and aggressive and impulsive, and then more likely to reach for our soothing behaviors when we're struggling, whether that's food or alcohol or numbing out in front of the television. And so while it's well-intentioned, self-criticism activates a really unhelpful biochemistry for not only just change, but feeling our sense of belonging to this world and to each other. So the physiology of self-compassion, when we respond with that tenderness, with that inner warmth, the way we would respond to a good friend, we activate what's called the soothing contentment system of the brain body. And it is designed to respond to, it's essentially from our mammalian caretaking system. So what would keep a child feeling safe and wanting to be close to the mother for survival are three main cues. One being soothing touch, whatever we would do to soothe a baby, soothing touch, warmth, physical warmth, and then gentle vocalizations, that really tender tone of voice, right? We hum to a baby, we sing to a baby, we motivate young children with kindness because we know that yelling at a young child actually is only going to cause them to go into fight, flight, or freeze. So the brain doesn't know whether compassion is coming from an external force or from ourselves. And so the more that we can train ourselves, and this is what I think is so exciting, is that self-compassion is an inner resource that's teachable and trainable. And for me, it took real intentional training and a real commitment to change this habit, this pattern of responding to my own failings and suffering with criticism or a lot of comparison. So in this next practice, and so back to the physiology, we actually activate hormone called oxytocin that brings the body into a state of feeling safe. And then we're actually more open, we're more creative, we feel connected to each other, and we're better equipped to make changes towards what it is we are wanting for ourselves. So it's really the foundation for resilience, is this capacity to turn towards ourselves with kindness in moments of struggle. So in this next meditation, it'll be a little bit longer guided practice, and we're going to explore the three components. So the self-compassion, it was codified by a meditation practitioner and researcher named Kristen Neff, who's a wonderful human being and an excellent researcher if you haven't come across her work. And she defines self-compassion as these three steps. And I think it's helpful to think about what is required, what are the ingredients to feel compassion towards another person. And it's those same ingredients just turned towards ourselves. So the first ingredient is, let's say a friend is acting not quite themselves, right? And so you kind of sense there's something up with my friend. And so there's this recognition of, we could call it suffering, or we could call it stress. And so we pause and we notice and we say, hey, how are you? So the first step is mindfulness, right? It's just acknowledging, it's noticing what's present. And then the second step, when we see a good friend who looks like they're having a hard time, is we feel connected to them. We recognize our shared humanity because we've known sorrow or we've known failure, that it's actually what connects us to each other, is this shared experience. So we call that step, the second step, shared humanity. And then the third step is kindness. And it's when the heart opens and there's this desire to support, to offer kindness. It's a really active motivation to respond to suffering. And so we might say, hey, do you want to go for a walk with me? Or hey, let's get a cozy cup of tea and chat. So those three steps, mindfulness, shared humanity, and kindness, we're going to practice offering towards ourselves. So any moment that we notice that we ourselves are in struggle or stress or feeling inadequate in some way, it's that moment of recognition. I call it the ouch moment, the mindfulness moment of like, oof, this hurts. And very often we're just kind of powering through, unaware when we're holding difficulty. The second step is where we recognize, like, wow, for everyone who's ever experienced this feeling or this situation, I'm not alone in this. This belongs to the human experience. And then the third step is turning towards ourselves with kindness. And today we're going to experiment with touch. So putting a hand on the heart. We'll experience with warmth, just extending sort of an inner warm tenderness towards ourselves. And we'll experiment with a kind inner tone. And I'll guide all of the steps along the way. And let it be an experiment. Let's see what you notice. And this practice will be about 15 minutes. And so before we begin, I'd like you to call to mind some area of your life that is stressful right now, or that you get caught in self-criticism, or that you wish were different. It could be a work-related situation. It could be some aspect of your personality that you tend to go to war with, or some addictive or soothing behavior. It could be a relationship challenge, but something that is not traumatic, stressful right now, but within that moderate range that we can work with in this practice. So I'll give you a second just to think about what might be an area of your life that would be helpful for this practice today. Something that is difficult right now, actively difficult. And then I'll guide us through the 3 steps with some hand gestures. So first, I'll have you call it time, and I'm going to have you tighten your hands and tighten your body. And this is the stance of resistance, which is often how we're relating, which could be an inner tone of like, this has to change. I hate that this is this way. Why do I keep doing this? Or why is this person this way? So the stance of resistance, and I'll have you tighten. And then we'll take the stance of mindfulness, and you'll just open the palms and let them rest on your hands, and we'll notice what's present. And then the stance of shared humanity is, you could just think about just sort of lightly reaching your hands forward, like you were reaching out to someone. This is part of the shared human experience. And then the third step, I'll have you bring your hands to your body. Could be your heart, could be your belly, you could hold on to your wrist, any gesture of active self-soothing, active self-care. And I'll also guide with different phrases. So just so you know, those gestures: resistance, mindfulness, shared humanity, opening the hands forward, and then kindness. All right, so go ahead and let the eyes close if that feels comfortable. And noticing that the body's breathing. There's no need to change the breath at all, just noticing the felt sense of an inhalation and the felt sense of an exhalation. And now please call to mind a situation in your life that is difficult, that is actively causing you stress, such as a health problem, relationship challenge, work challenge, or some behavior that you wish were different. Choosing a challenge that's in the mild to moderate range, so not overwhelming. I want it to be workable. And as you call to mind this challenging situation, recall enough of the details where you will feel some discomfort in your body. Tightening or gripping, dropping of the belly, fluttering. Calling enough of the details to mind where it's felt in the body. And now in a moment, we'll take the stance of resistance. So you could tighten the fists, perhaps tighten your shoulders or your facial muscles. And this is very often how we're relating to moments of difficulty, this sense of I'm hating this, or this shouldn't be, or I shouldn't be this way. This has to change. Perhaps the mind goes into comparison mode. Just noticing what it feels like, this state of resistance in the body. Getting just a little bit tighter. And now releasing the hands, softening the face, resting back. The space of awareness. The first step of self-compassion is mindfulness, just noticing what is here. We might acknowledge this is a moment of suffering right now. This is difficult. And feeling the body breathing, bringing the attention to the heart area and noticing the feelings that are passing through. You might silently whisper to yourself any feelings that are obvious. Oh, this is fear. This is sorrow. This is confusion. This is a longing to be valued. Noticing what is present and resting back as the space of awareness that can hold it. And now gently moving your hands forward a few inches as if reaching out to someone. And this is the gesture of shared humanity. This wise recognition that suffering is a part of life. Difficult emotions are a part of life. For everyone who's ever experienced what I am experiencing, I am not alone. This is how it feels when people struggle in this way. Sensing shared humanity, this web of belonging. And now bringing the hands either to the heart or to the belly or some other place on the body. You might experiment different places. For some people, the hands on the heart is quite soothing. For others, even hands on the cheeks. And feeling the body breathing. And feeling the warmth of your hands, the gentle touch of your hands, and really allowing the body to respond. The mind can take time to respond to kindness. The body is quite good at receiving care, letting the body fully receive. And as you feel the breath underneath the hands, turning towards this human life with kindness. May I be kind to myself. May I be kind to myself. And perhaps there are other words that you might need to hear. May I accept myself in this moment. Or may I give myself the compassion that I need. Perhaps may I forgive myself. And if you could imagine that a dear friend or loved one were experiencing exactly the same problem, exactly the same challenge as you, what words would you offer this loved one? Do you want this loved one to remember, to know is true, to remember what matters? And seeing what it's like to deliver the same message to yourself. And bringing the attention back to the sensations of the hands on the body. And the sensations of the body breathing. And offering ourselves compassion, not to fix or change or push away what is here, but simply to turn towards this human life and to allow our hearts to soften whenever difficulty is present. May I be kind to myself. May I accept myself as I am, or may I learn to accept myself as I am. May I give myself the compassion that I need. I invite you to linger here as long as you like, as long as you need, knowing that this inner resource of compassion is always available to us. And whenever the time feels right, to slowly open the eyes and to come on back, can do so. And then we'll have a few moments just for self-reflection. Either you can just sit quietly, or if you have a pen and paper nearby, to explore what you noticed in those three steps of, moving first from resistance to mindfulness. What was that like, of just allowing, acknowledging the flow of feelings that were present? What was the second step of shared humanity like? This reaching out, this remembering our connection to the shared human experience, and that we're not alone in our struggles. And what was the third experience like, of offering kindness to the self? Did it feel easy? Did it feel awkward? Did it feel, did you feel nothing at all? Numbness? I just want to honor that whatever you experienced is well within the range of normal. And so take a moment just to consider what you noticed for yourself. And then in about 2 minutes, we'll get to share as a group.